Hi, welcome to the channel built by Ben. Today we're going to be replacing some rotten columns on the exterior of a front door. So most of you have got these on your new build houses, so I'm hoping it's going to be quite a handy video for you. But if you haven't got one of these, most of the skills in the video are good transferable skills anyway. So it will be handy to know even if you've got any kind of woodwork job. So I hope you enjoyed the video. What I want you to do is to drop in the comments how much you think this job cost, include materials, and the closest person to that will get a shout out on my next video. So if you've got an Instagram page or something you want to promote, then I'll do that for you as well. So I hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks for joining me again. Make sure you watch it all the way through. Like the video, subscribe to the channel. Thanks very much. Don't forget to tell a mate about it. Right, so this bit of footage here, this is when I first turned up and measured the job. Doesn't look too bad from first glance, but you see as we start to get a little bit closer, all of the wood there has started to peel off. We've got quite a lot of swelling, quite a lot of rot in the frame there. And at this point I sort of imagined it to be like a ply board stuck on a 2x2 frame. You can see a bit more rot there, but what I decided to do was just take it up to these beads there. You see them sort of molded beads at the top of the columns, to keep the price down for the customer because there was no rot above that point. So what we thought we'd do is just take it up to there, just build the two new columns down to the floor, and then paint it up to match the top. So first job was just taking the doorbells off there. This one wasn't wired in, it was just a battery one, so that's not too bad. And the other doorbell was just on a very low voltage connection wiring. But the first job to do is just to hop up on a stool there and multi-tool neatly around the bottom of that stuck on moulding. So then the second job we're about to do now is get them bottoms off of these pillars, which was just stuck on the front of them really. That's all they need to be. So we just get a pry bar behind there, give it a light tap, make sure you don't damage anything around it too much. As at this point I realised it was actually MDF that's in there, which is an awful idea really, but some people just do that. Maybe it was cost effective at the time. If it's fully painted then it will withstand the weather for a while, but I went in with a marine ply. You could use tricoya as well, but it's a little bit expensive. So the frame behind there I was sort of expecting to maybe have to change some of the 2x2, not too much of it, but it was actually in really good shape. There was no rot at the bottom. One of the main problems with this frame that I've found was that it almost touched the slabs at the bottom there, which will just trap water. If you trap water to the bottom of wood, it will rot out as quick as you like. So just always leave a gap at the bottom. I like to leave at least 10 mil really. Just lets the water pass freely under it and not soak up into the bottom. And again, we're just getting rid of that other pillar. I don't want to show you twice. So we've just benched the marine ply there, and we've got the festal plunge saw out ready. And all we're going to do is basically build half a box here. We're going to cut them at 45-degree angles. So we set the saw to the 45-degree and just make it mitered. So we miter these three pieces together and make a hollow column almost, just to stick onto the front of the 2x2 that's on the wall. If you are ever cutting sheet material and you need to cut the back of it, but you can only measure the front, if you're with me. So in this case the 2x2 had to be the inside measurement, but because you then had to cut from the face of it, all you have to do is just add the thickness of the material. So if you want the bottom measurement to come out after you've cut your 45 degrees, Then you just add the material's thickness onto your measurement and cut that. Hopefully you understand what I mean there. I'll do a drawing if anyone wants one. But so the inside measurement of that face now is what I needed for the 2x2. So for example, if it was a 200mm inside face measurement that I needed, then you'd add on both of the thicknesses, so 2 times the thickness to find the outside face. So 236mm in this case, because it was an 18mm material. So what I'm doing at this point is I'm just putting a 10-degree chamfer on the bottom of all the pieces, just to stop the capillary action. What this does is just creates a nice point for the water to drip off of. And we don't want water tracking back underneath that surface and pulling back into the 2x2 and pulling back into the wall. So it's a nice little way of doing it. And I'm just testing the bits as we go, just to make sure they're a good fit. So the way I glue up these columns is just to turn them all onto their inside face, put all of the miters together and line them up nicely, and then we'll run some masking tape right across the width of all 3 of them, and then the masking tape just acts as almost like its own clamp. Right, so we just put the masking tape across the whole width of all 3 pieces. Make sure you stick that down nice and solid. I've always found with masking tape that if it's a little bit cold, then the adhesive on the masking tape is not as effective. So you'll see me there just rubbing on the masking tape there. It just warms the adhesive up a little bit, and it helps it stick to the wood. Just be nice and careful when you're doing that. You want to make sure that your miters are lining up lovely, because otherwise you'll start getting opening miters once it's all glued up. And then what we do here is we just flip it over nice and carefully, make sure that none of the masking tape breaks, and then just lay it flat and get ready to just PVA up the joints. I've used a nice exterior grade PVA here, the Gorilla Glue one. Never used this one before, but the nozzle on it is brilliant. You get a nice flat, no mess nozzle, which is absolutely brilliant. I'm going to be buying that one again. I'll stick a link for that on my Amazon shop in the description if any of you want to grab one of those bottles. But so far so good. It's really decent nozzle on it. And then we just flap up the column and make it into a half box like we want. And then the weight of it will hold itself on there. And all we're doing here is we're just whacking a bit of mitre mate in there just to keep it held whilst we fix it into place, because the worst thing that can happen is obviously that starts to wiggle about once we're fitting it. And then all we're doing here is just giving the inside a little primer. I didn't really want the untreated ply to sit on the inside of that, just in case water ever does get in there in the future. This will just give it a little bit of extra protection, and help the longevity of it. So you can see here, before we fit in, this is what we're left with. And so as you can see, it's quite tidy. Those bits there, that's the bit that I wasn't quite happy with, because it was sitting there quite low, trapping water against the sill there. That's why the sill's rotted out a little bit. So what I did before I fit it was I just multi-tooled the bottom sort of 20mm off of them 2x2 battens before we fitted the columns on. You can see we're just going on with that stick saw extreme power, which I absolutely love. It's one of the best adhesives that I've ever used. I'm not sponsored by them or anything, but it's just a good product. Again, I'll chuck that on my Amazon shop if anyone wants to grab some of that. And then here we're just trying in these columns, making sure they fit okay. And you want to try not to take the adhesive back onto the wall and back onto the door frame, so sort of pry it apart very gently whilst we're putting it onto the adhesive, and then the adhesive stays in place and does its job. So just hoik them up right up to the moulding, and then we just fix it with some second fix Paslow pins back into the 2x2. And we're just gunning up the second one here, get the other column in, and then we'll be ready to start taking that masking tape off and giving them a nice sand down. Something else I did here is just chuck some pins through the miters, just to give them that extra little bit of strength in case that glue ever fails. I like to just reinforce the miters with that, and also if any of it's opened up just a tiny little bit, you can squeeze it really tight and pin it. You can usually lose some of them hairline gaps there. Now I marked on the door frame. It's quite important that you do it as well. You mark on the white door frame there where your doorbell was, because otherwise you can end up losing that behind there. But one of the last jobs to do is just to give it a final sand down. And you don't want to roll the corners too much. You want to keep it nice and sharp. All we want is just to take the sharp off very gently, just so that the paint stays on it. If you don't take the sharp corner off, then the paint does just come off a bit. And we see here we're just marking out the doorbell, making sure that we get that nice and central. I'm just going through with a force and a bit there so that we get a nice neat hole. It's important in ply because ply does explode a bit. If you're going with a spade bit or something, it's just going to tear it apart. Force and a bits are really nice for a neat little hole. And what I'm trying not to do is push too hard with it. Go through nice and slowly, because what we don't want to do is go through and catch the wires and end up mangling them up. And I'll get my little hook tool just to fish them out. And then what we're doing at this stage is we're making the little feet for the columns. All I'm going to do is exactly the same that we've done for the columns, but we're just going to make them slightly bigger, obviously. The inside face of these little feet are going to be the same as the outside face of the columns. So if you write their measurements down in the beginning, then you can just remember them for this part rather than measuring twice. We put a 10mm bevel on the bottom again just to create that water drip. But what we're also going to do on this one is put a 45 degree on the top, so it creates a sort of bevel effect on the top there for the water to come off of the columns. And again, it's just the same method here, just using the masking tape, getting that stuck down nice and neatly, and then we'll flip it over, give it a glue up, and get ready to fit them. Yeah, go on, mate. Yeah. Looks good, doesn't it? She loves purple, mate. Her whole office is purple. Really? Fitting those is just as simple as getting some of the sticks on the back there. This was just a test fitting. But when it was all stick-sawed up, we just put some second fix pins through the columns, just to sort of get that to have a full connection, be nice and strong. And then we just caulked around the top of them and smoothed it off just to give the paint a nice bit to sit on. We fill all the pinholes. This is just showing you how to caulk the top of them feet there. I suppose another way you could do that is just put a line of caulk on there before you fit them so it squeezes out. You get a nice sort of good layer of caulk then. And then we give it a final sand down so that the job's complete. And then before I left this job, because it wasn't due to be painted for about a month, I just decided to stick a coat of primer on. And then the customer gave it another coat of primer later on that evening as well. So it got 2 coats of primer. I used a brush for the little tricky bits and all for the cutting in. And then I used the HD foam roller just to roll the faces. So the only thing left to do on this door surround was to finish the painting off and do the doorbell. But if you've enjoyed the video, then please press like on the video for me. It makes a massive difference. The more likes you give it and the more comments you give it, spreads it out to more and more people. So like I said, if you can guess the price of the invoice that I sent out to this customer, drop it in the comments below. Closest person will get a mention on next week's video. So if you've got an Instagram or something that you want to promote, then let me know. If you guess the right price, I'll give that a shout out too. But this is the finished primed job. I think it looks really good. It was a nice solid unit. Customer was super happy with it. All of the lines look nice and neat. And that's how to replace them rotten columns without replacing the whole lot. See you on the next one. Cheers.